Welcome in, everybody, to Fandom NFL. I'm your QB1, Joe Pisapia, and we've got a great show for you today. In case you missed it, we've got a series going on here on Fandom NFL where we break down the rankings, and I've waited here for running back as long as we could, as close to the season as we possibly can, and I'm sure there's going to be plenty of other injuries between now and the opening of the season, but fingers crossed we make it through as we break down the rankings in case you missed any of the previous ones on the channel already. We've got the tight end rankings breakdown. We've got the quarterback rankings. They always seem a little bit safer to do earlier because, the guys in the red jerseys, you don't hit the quarterback very often. But when it comes to running backs, we're already dealing with injuries. We're going to talk about how those injuries and those situations are bearing out in preseason and what they mean for your draft capital here. And of course, if you're new to the channel, welcome for the first time. And if you're an OG, you know what to do. Like this video, drop your comments below, subscribe to Fandom NFL, your hub for all things football, whether it be betting, whether it be just NFL talk or fantasy talk, all of it. It's here. It's entertaining and it's for you. And remember, when you subscribe to the channel, and you like the video and you drop a comment, good things happen, like our giveaway. We're going to hit 5,000 subs pretty soon. So we're giving away a Thurman Thomas autographed mini helmet for when we hit that to one of you lucky viewers. We already gave away the Zay Flowers autographed jersey. We're going to have all kinds of giveaways in Season 2, so keep jamming that subscribe button and hype the video too. I don't know what it does, but it looks cool when you hype it. There's like a little rainbow and a star, and it's fun. So we're going to be working with the rankings over at RotoWire, which, again, if you're new to the channel, make sure you head over to RotoWire. Download the app, go to rotowire.com. Not only can you see the consensus, you can link all of your teams for free, no matter where you are, and use the draft software to help you. The assistant GM is there to help make recommendations during your draft, to kind of work you through. You've seen it here on the channel. We run the mock draft software, but they've got the in-season tools too, and you get 20% off. Don't forget, when you use that promo code JoeyP over at RotoWire, so go do that. It's good for you. 20% off, promo code JoeyP. Download the RotoWire app. Use the tools for your draft. Use them in season. Don't be a tool. Use the tools over at RotoWire. Again, Joey P is the promo code. When you go and use it, you help me, Joe P. Zapia, stay afloat here on the channel. So let's get after it, and let's start with the rankings here at the very top. And of course, where do we start at the top? Of course, Jahmyr Gibbs over on RotoWire. No surprise there. Jahmyr Gibbs, I still say, is the 101 here. Not as much competition there in terms of any other running backs in the circle, in the sphere. Isaiah Pacheco does not scare me in the slightest. Jahmyr Gibbs has been slowly building up to what I think is going to be a career season for him this year, and that's saying something because the last couple years have been pretty good. I like him over Bijan simply because I also feel better about the offense, feel better about the quarterback. The quarterback is going to be, I think, a little bit more stable than Tua Tagovailoa will be in Atlanta, which means that, again, if we have to kind of mince here, parse, whatever word you want to use here, split hairs, which clearly is not something I can do at this juncture in my life, I'll take Jahmyr Gibbs over Bijan. Bijan's not the wrong answer. It's just a matter of what offense do I feel better about. I feel better about Gibbs and Detroit by just a little bit. So there you go. Next up here, Bijan Robinson at 2. We all know that. He's got an opportunity for a 1,000 season. He could absolutely do that this year. It's on the books, even potentially with any concerns that we have about the quarterback play. And they're real. I'm going to give Tua some landing room here. It's a new team, a new offense. He's learning some new things, so I'm not going to overreact to the bad preseason stuff so far. Let's give it some time, and then Michael Penix, hopefully he gets time as well, and we'll see as time goes on. I think the Falcons are going to be underwhelming, but Bijan's still going to be great. That brings us to Christian McCaffrey. Now, Christian McCaffrey is, of course, a player that is very divisive. I said recently in a tweet, Christian McCaffrey is kind of like this. He's somewhere between drafting him and you either end up with the best sex of your life or you can end up with a sexually transmitted disease. And it's one of those two, pretty much, every year. And you have to figure out what kind of manager you are and which one you can deal with. All right? Now, he's already questionable for an undisclosed injury. So is the substation working again? I don't know. Perhaps he is. But we already have tightness. We have concerns. The last time we had all this weird veil of secrecy around Christian McCaffrey, it turned out to be a calf issue that ended up costing him the majority of the season 2 years ago. Now, last year he came back and he was brilliant. Look at these numbers. 311 on the attempts, 1,200 yards on the ground, another 900 in the receiving realm, 17 combined touchdowns. He was absolutely brilliant last year. You are seeing, though, if you watch Christian McCaffrey carefully, between the tackles, he's not quite the same guy in terms of burst. I think that's just part of the age. He's turning 30 this year, as you see, 30-year-old running back. You look at the projections for him, they have him at over 1,000 yards rushing, 9 touchdowns on the ground, 4 through the air, 627. Now, look, that is significantly lower projection-wise than the previous season, which I think is wise considering the over 400 touches that he had combined last year. And that's a lot of touches for a running back like Christian McCaffrey, who has a lot of miles on the tires. Christian McCaffrey, for me, where he's going in overall ADP is still not where I want to be. When I get into the middle of drafts, I prefer the Amon-Ra St. Browns. I prefer the Puka Nakuas. I prefer the big wide receiver, and then waiting for running back a little bit later on to get my hero. If you want to take CMC, that's fine. You just have to understand what the upside and the downside is, and I can't put it any clearer than the metaphor that I used. It's going to be one of those two things, and some people are willing to roll the dice on that. That's okay. It's your fantasy stock at the end of the day. It's your fantasy rosters at the end of the day. I think if you're in casual leagues and you're having fun and it's an 8-team league, sure, you can do it. If you're in a 14-team league and Christian McCaffrey gets hurt, man, that's kind of your season right there. Even in a 12-team league, it could be. So you have to understand the risk that he is, and I think by now we know. Last year, that risk paid off. The year before, that risk did not. And we can go on and on throughout the history of Christian McCaffrey, and we've seen this roller coaster up and down. Let's continue on with some more of the rankings, though, because I can't argue against him at 3. The next 2 guys after him, James Cook, Jonathan Taylor, this is where I would have them too, once again, respective offenses. James Cook, you know, you have DJ Moore added in, but James Cook is that focal point along with Josh Allen. Josh Allen does a great job of moving the change, extending drives. That gives James Cook a lot of opportunity to continue to get fantasy points. He was persona non grata last year, and if you watched any of my programming, I told you how many shares of James Cook that I've had last season. Because although he couldn't probably match the high total of touchdowns, he did still come close, which is exactly what I thought. Now, just because they've added DJ Moore doesn't mean that I'm off James Cook. It does not mean that. It means that James Cook is still very viable. And Jonathan Taylor is as well. Both of these guys, very solid, I would think mid to late first round picks. In half PPR, I like them a little bit more, because you're always favoring touchdowns, and I think both guys have locks for double-digit touchdowns again this year. You also saw last year just an incredible run Jonathan Taylor had of going touchdown after touchdown after touchdown. And, of course, that train slowed down a little bit for Jonathan Taylor once Daniel Jones got hurt. I do think you will have that team once again rely very heavily on Jonathan Taylor early in the season as Daniel Jones comes back from that injury. So Taylor, once again, very strong investment, I believe, this year. A little bit cheaper in your auction drafts than Christian McCaffrey will be. James Cook will also be cheaper than McCaffrey. And at the end of the day, I think a little less risk on both of those guys, to be honest. Less reward, I get it, but we're trying to make sure we don't screw up things early on with these running back investments. I'm still a big wide receiver guy. After Gibbs and Bijan, give me those receivers, and then towards the end of the first round, I'm looking for Cook, I'm looking for Taylor, and some of the other guys we're going to talk about. Now, next year on the list, which is, again, on the consensus at rotowire.com, you have Ashton Genty and Chase Brown. I have Chase Brown ahead of Ashton Genty for very simple reasons. If you watched recently, and from the look of the views, you have, Justin Boone came on from Yahoo. We had a great conversation about Chase Brown, why Chase Brown was one of his must-haves. And one of the things we pointed out was that Chase Brown last year, very quietly, was basically the 5th guy in terms of receptions at the running back position. It was the elite 3 guys, McCaffrey, Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, and then it was Kenneth Gainwell, who had a really wacky, fun season for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then Chase Brown. Yet we don't talk about Chase Brown being close to the other 3 guys. Chase Brown plays with Joe Burrow. Ashton Genty is still playing an offense, although Clint Kubiak I have a lot of faith in. It's still an offense led by Kirk Cousins, and then a rookie, Fernando Mendoza, eventually, who I do think Mendoza will play more than half the season. I just have that gut feeling he will. He should. He's looked pretty good so far in preseason. He's a really hard worker, but still, he's a rookie. And I think there's limitations there. Genty's offensive line has improved. It's still not elite, but I think it's better than it was. I'll take Chase Brown in the better offense, in the better offensive ecosystem any day. And for more on the offensive ecosystem, make sure you check out your Fantasy Football Black Book. Still plenty of time to get it. 2026 version is available on Amazon, and I just updated the cheat sheets this week as well. I'll update them again, probably more than once before we get to that last weekend of drafts. So again, go get your Fantasy Football Black Book 2026 on Amazon. Next up here on the rankings, we have some veterans going on. We have Saquon Barkley as the 8th running back, Omarion Hampton as 9, and then Devon Achane as 10. Those are the top 10 guys there. Now, when we cycle through, to me, when you're starting to look at some of these running backs, My whole thing is this. When you go through and you see Ashton Genty, Omarion Hampton, Ken Walker, you see some of these guys here in this list. My whole thing is we're looking at investment in offense. I would still take Derrick Henry over Saquon Barkley. I feel very strongly about that. Omarion Hampton to me is much more intriguing than Saquon Barkley at this stage in his career. Now, you can make the argument easily Saquon is more proven. There's no doubt about that. But when you get to the end of the first round, I'm looking for a guy that could finish top 5. Now, Barkley's done that before, but Barkley's also had a bunch of injuries in the past. He's had some other issues too. Omarion Hampton, I think, is got a real opportunity where he could end up right there in terms of top 5 overall guys. And I don't think that that's hyperbole. I think that offense has all the upside in the world. I think the Chargers with Mike McDaniel are going to be a special offense this year. And as we continue to look through these ranks here, you're going to see right now, as we peel back, once again, Ashton Genty, Chase Brown, Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry at 10. I'll take Derrick Henry over Barkley. Ken Walker is an interesting one too. And I had a really great conversation with the Lineup Fantasy Football guys. The collab is on this page. If you scroll down to the bottom of Fandom NFL, you'll see that collab where we talked about Kenneth Walker. I think Kenneth Walker is going to have a gangbuster start to the season. I mean, great. I think they're going to feed him the rock over and over and over again, and you're going to feel like a genius when you drafted him. But the problem is, it's hard to let go of that sense of being right, that sense of knowing, hey, look, Ken Walker is going to be a beast in the beginning of the season because the Chiefs need him to be. Patrick Mahomes is not 100%. Travis Kelce's old. I'm watching him run routes. It looks like he's running in quicksand, which, by the way, as an 80s child, I was led to believe quicksand would be a much more impactful thing in my life, that I would encounter it every so often. Not once in my life have I ever seen quicksand. Haven't seen it. You're a kid of the 80s. It was all over the place. Princess Bride, Neverending Story, all these movies. Quicksand. Legitimate thing. Very scary stuff. Not so much in real life. So all my 80s kids out there, you feel me? You understand what's going on? But going back to Ken Walker, I think what's going to happen is as Mahomes gets healthier and he gets more comfortable recovering from that surgery of the ACL tear, you will see them air it out more. And then you also have to take into account the risk of Ken Walker, who historically, Kenneth Walker has had a lot of injuries. He had a lot of incomplete seasons. Last year, he had 1,000 yards, 5 touchdowns, and a very run-heavy attack, but he split time with Charbonnet. There was some time missed as well. I think they knew he was going to walk, no pun intended. They used him as much as they could in the playoffs out of necessity when Charbonnet got hurt, but they also knew that, hey, this is probably the end for Ken Walker here. And if you look at these numbers here, over 1,000 yards, 8 touches, 369 in the receiving yards, like those are all pretty good numbers. I just think this is a guy that you want to have on your roster, you want to draft for 6 weeks, and then you want to look to move him in mid to late October, because that's when the wear and tear factor starts in historically with Kenneth Walker. That's also when I think the Chiefs offense will start to evolve a little bit into something else. I'm not saying Kenneth Walker can't have a 1,500 yard season. He could. It's just unlikely based on what we've seen out of the track record of him. So what I want to do is I want to have him on my roster and then be realistic about what I can get back for him, especially at peak value, and how risky he is to hold throughout the entire season with what seems like the inevitable Kenneth Walker injury that befalls us every single season. Love Kenneth Walker, the player. First half of the season, I'm all in. Second half, not so much. He's a draft look for me, but not a whole season look. Whereas Derrick Henry, for me, is still a full season guy. Here you go, last year. Where's the decline of Derrick Henry? It's got to come. Well, not last year. 300 attempts, 1,500, almost 1,600 rushing yards, 16 touchdowns. They were behind a lot, right? So there was even times where he came out of some games and he was on the sideline. We talked about that with Jake Seeley on the most recent show too. This year projections have him at 1,440 and 12 touchdowns. Sign me up. Sign me up for Derrick Henry. If you're going to give me Derrick Henry in the second round, I'm all in. And I would still take him over Kenneth Walker. Despite the age, despite the situation, I'm still taking Derrick Henry over Kenneth Walker, which is not where the rankings are, but it's where I am. So let's get back to those rankings here. Actually, you know what? In these rankings, Derrick Henry, see, RotoWire is good. In some spots, you're going to see the consensus where Ken Walker is higher than Derrick Henry. Not on RotoWire. Good job, RotoWire. Omarion Hampton at 12. For me, this grouping would be Chase Brown, Omarion Hampton for that upside, Derrick Henry, then we get to Saquon, Ken Walker. So we're splitting hairs a little bit, but that's kind of where I'm at with those guys. Next up is Kyren Williams at 13. And Kyren Williams, another one who every year people keep looking to try to replace him. They keep looking at reasons why they don't want Kyren Williams. There's a scenario where you can get Kyren Williams as your second back and he's still a top 12 guy again. And it feels like we go through the cycle with Kyren Williams. This is where we go back to the conversation about offensive ecosystem. The offensive ecosystem in LA for the Rams is outstanding. Yes, you saw Blake Corum working. There was a plan behind that last year. They wanted Kyren Williams fresh for the playoffs, and they got it. You could still see that next year, and you could still see Kyren Williams have a great season regardless. He's also one of these guys that, if you have Kyren Williams, one of the few that I would say, yes, Blake Corum is worth the handcuff. Go around early so you have him because you know how good the offense is. You know Blake Corum can score touchdowns in it. You know what to expect. Whereas most of these handcuffs, it is such a dramatic drop-off from the Derrick Henrys to the next guy, from the Chase Browns to the next guy. Right? It's not a thing. But in the Rams offense, it is. So if you have Kyren, it's one of the few handcuff situations that I would actually recommend you getting involved in. So Kyren Williams still to me is a fringy RB1, just like he's ranked here. Jeremiah Love at 14, that's the next guy we're going to talk about. And Jeremiah Love already dealing with a high ankle sprain. It's going to keep him off the field for a couple weeks. Now that's important because he's missing time in the new offense. He's missing time at the NFL level. I think he was used a little bit too much in the preseason, that first game. I don't know why they quite went so balls to the wall with Jeremiah Love so early. Sure, he's the new fun toy, but can we not break our toys before we even start playtime? Before we even have our play date? Our toys are broken? They have him projected for 211 attempts, 900 rushing yards, 6 touchdowns, 392 receiving, another 2 touchdowns there on the receiving side. These projections feel pretty right to me, which is why I struggle with Jeremiah Love where he is. Yeah, when you watch him run, it feels a lot like a young Adrian Peterson, who, by the way, was coming off a knee injury his rookie season. I remember that year I drafted a ton of Adrian Peterson because not a lot of people watch college football necessarily who play fantasy football, and I knew what Adrian Peterson was, and I got him late, and it was brilliant. He was a league winner for me everywhere. Jeremiah Love, the price tag is much higher. Now, will this injury possibly slow it down a little? It might. I would still take Kyren Williams over Jeremiah Love the way the rankings are, so I still agree with that. If you look here, that's where RotoWire consensus is, and I agree with that consensus. I would take Jeremiah Love over Breece Hall, who's dealing with a groin injury of his own, and still plays for a Jets offense that I still have massive concerns about. Taking him over Josh Jacobs and Javonte Williams, the next two guys, that is also a conversation that needs to be had. Because there's plenty of upside with Jeremiah Love. There's also plenty of downside with a crowded backfield as of right now. You still have James Conner there. You still have Tyler Algier there. We don't know exactly how it's going to work out. We could very well be in a situation, especially coming off of this high ankle sprain, where we don't see as much Jeremiah Love in September as we want. If you hearken back to a couple years ago, Jahmyr Gibbs, first 6 weeks of his career were not great. People wanted to drop him. They were disenfranchised, to say the least. If you stayed the course and you had patience, you were rewarded. That's probably what this feels like again when it comes to Jeremiah Love. So keep that in mind if you're drafting him. Now, when Josh Jacobs, we know the extracurricular stuff off the field. We're still waiting for clarity on that. He's been a workhorse for Green Bay. Last year, he missed some time. He still almost had 1,000 yards. He had 13 touchdowns, 282 on the receiving side. It was a great year for him. Projections this year, pretty much copy and paste, right? 10 touchdowns on the ground, 1,000 yards, very solid. Maybe one of the last of the quote-unquote hero RBs. I think Josh Jacobs, the player, is safer than Jeremiah Love in redraft. I just don't know if Josh Jacobs is safer as an entity right now, based on the fact that we still are kind of unknown. Every week that passes, it feels more and more like the Jacobs situation is going to be something that maybe gets pushed till next year. And we've seen that happen where something happens in the NFL, they don't address it right away, they wait for legal actions to unfold, and then you get the suspension later on, like Rashee Rice, for instance, right? That was another good example of that. We've seen it happen to other players in the past. So we might not get any of that this year. We could also get it at some point in the season, and that would be very problematic for your shares. And unfortunately, we don't have any control over that. Javonte Williams, on the other hand, another guy that had a great season last year. Javonte Williams, very solid running back. Came at a huge discount last year. Now you're not getting that discount. Right now, you see him as the 17th running back off the board. Still pretty good. I mean, I would be very happy with Javonte Williams as the 17th running back. I'm good with that. I'll still take that. That offense is still outstanding. Yes, they did lose some touchdowns towards the end of last year. I do think the defense will be improved. So maybe we don't get into quite as much of a scoring onslaught as we did previous seasons. But still, Javonte Williams, safer than Josh Jacobs, safer than Breece Hall, safer than Jeremiah Love. Does he have some of the upside of the other guys that I just mentioned? No. But you have to understand what kind of manager you are and which one you want to be and how you want to construct a roster. When we get to 18 and 19, this is where I start to get really intrigued, okay? 18 and 19 is when we start talking about players like Cam Scatterbo, players like Travis Etienne. Now, Travis Etienne, who now does not have Alvin Kamara lurking around for a couple weeks at least. Kamara came up with an injury this past week. We know now Travis Etienne is going to basically have this full run, as I kind of anticipated anyway. I didn't think Alvin Kamara would be really problematic. A lot of people do. This feels a lot kind of like last year with Travis Etienne, where nobody wanted him because you couldn't repeat what he did 2 years previously. 2024 was disappointing. 2025 was awesome. And now here we are again where nobody believes in this guy. Well, the Saints believed in him. They made him a priority. They signed him. So maybe we should pay attention to that as well. Maybe we should believe a little bit more. The Saints have an opportunity to go from worst to first this year. They absolutely could win this division. It is up for grabs. If Tyler Shuck plays well, I know the Jordan Tyson injury sucks, but again, Travis Etienne, more work there for him potentially in the pass game as well, at least early on. So Etienne I really like. I also love Cam Scatterbo. We've talked about this a million times. He's a big dumb animal and I love him. And eventually it's going to burn out. It's not going to fade away. But he's 24 years old. He is coming off an injury. I get it. If you look at these projections right now for 201 on the attempt side, 874 on the yards, 8 touchdowns, 338 receiving and another touchdown. I think these are low-end projections. I think there's a world where he gets 1,500 combined yards this year, all-purpose yards, easily. I think there's a world where he gets double-digit touchdowns, and if he does, that is a massive win. That's a league-winning type jump for Cam Scatterbo because he jumps into that low-end RB1 tier, and right now, as you can see, you're getting him as the 18th running back off the board, and I'm drafting him everywhere there. Sure, it's risky. He plays very hard. Football's a dangerous game. But right here, 17, 18, 19, and 20 with David Montgomery, another guy that I feel really good about, another guy that I want to invest in, because for me, David Montgomery is another one of these safe running backs. There's nobody behind him I'm worried about. Last year, just 700 yards rushing, 8 touchdowns, but now he's got the run of the backfield. I would be shocked if he didn't break 1,000 yards. It would take him missing time, I think, to miss 1,000 yards rushing this year. I think he's in line for double-digit touchdowns this year. The Texans are a great defense. If you have any concerns about C.J. Stroud, and now you just lost Jaden Higgins for the year, so now we're down to Tank Dell and Nico Collins and some of the other guys that are going to cycle through the Jalen Knowles of the world, you're going to see an even heavier run attack. You have to keep this in mind now. When you start to lose other weapons, you have to change what you're doing offensively, and that means the Texans are going to have to evolve continuously, and you might see what was a running attack pretty heavily, maybe even become a little bit more boring and a little bit more run heavy. So David Montgomery in this, what I call the sweet spot of running back. Javonte, Cam Scatterbo, Travis Etienne, David Montgomery. 17 to 20. If you can get one of these guys, great. If you can get two of these guys, amazing. This is the grouping here. If there's a dead zone for me, it's Love, Hall, Jacobs, because there's just unknown stuff there. There's injury stuff there. There's crowded backfields. There's outside concerns. When you get to 17, 18, 19, 20, Javonte, Cam Scatterbo, Etienne, Montgomery, I don't have any questions about this group. And for the record, I do not care that Najee Harris is there now. Najee Harris is there because Tyrone Tracy can't block and he fumbles. Tyrone Tracy is probably on his way out the door. Okay? Najee Harris didn't come in to take over Cam Scatterbo's job. He's there as a backup because you need one because Cam Scatterbo plays with reckless abandon. Next up here, we get into another kind of weird area. Travion Henderson is a 50-50 split. Don't love that. And again, that's just what we're getting out of camp, but it could even be 60-40 where he's on the 40 side. So far, still frustrating with Travion Henderson a little bit. Bucky Irving at 22. Again, kind of a crowded backfield. Will he come off the field sometimes? Yeah, he will. He's also a smaller back. We saw last year, kind of caught up with him a little bit. So When you go and you sign Kenneth Gainwell, now we're going to see, well, he's going to lose some of the passing work to, yeah, I think he will lose some passing work to Kenneth Gainwell. DeAndre Swift's stock goes up over Travion Henderson for me, especially with his Monangai injury. So he's going to be slow to start that year. So DeAndre Swift, actually, I would put at 21 and drop Henderson down if we're talking about the rankings there. Next up after DeAndre Swift is Quinshon Judkins. And I want to pause here at 24 because he is going as the 24th running back. And Quinshon Judkins has massive upside for where he's being drafted. Last year, I was very skeptical. I did not want to invest in redraft leagues in Quinshon Judkins, another guy that had off the field issues. But last year still came in late to camp, which always concerns me for rookies who miss development time in camp. Still posted 827 yards on the ground and 7 touchdowns. Todd Monken's going to run the football. We know this. We've seen this before. You have to run the football because your quarterback situation is a dumpster fire. So Quinshon Judkins is going to work early and often. I think he's got a little bit more receiving upside than people want to admit. If you remember what he did at Ohio State, Quinshon Judkins, very good in a tandem back situation. Make no mistake, he is the lead back here. He is the 3-down back, in my opinion. You'll see Sampson, you'll see some other guys, but Quinshon is going to get the lion's share, and that's the kind of running back you want to invest in. Even if it is a bad ecosystem, even if it's a bad offense, the amount of volume Quinshon Judkins can get him over 1,000 yards rushing. 7 touchdowns seems reasonable. There could be room for more, but I don't want to get crazy here. But Quinshon Judkins as the 24th running back is an extreme value I would take without a doubt. That's another one of the targets. Now, those are the top 24 guys. When we get outside of that, we're dealing with Jalen Warren, Jadarian Price. We'll take a look at these guys in the rankings here. I'll tell you what I think is different here. Jalen Warren, Jadarian Price, Bashal Tutin, Rico Dowdle. I would have Tutin ahead because I do think he's still the front runner there, especially in PPR formats. Warren and Dowdle, I want the guy that comes cheaper, and it's typically Rico Dowdle. Jadarian Price, I'm warming to, but I'm still not quite there yet. I know Theo Greminger, when he came on the show, was very bullish about him, very bullish about the opportunity he has to kind of take this job and run with it right away, and he very well might be right. And I can understand taking him over the Pittsburgh situation, over the New England situation, as you see Ramondre Stevenson at 29. Then you have Chuba Hubbard, Tony Pollard. Now, Tony Pollard I still think is going to be the workhorse guy there. Tajay Spears has had his opportunities. He hasn't done it. Singleton, I'm still not 100% sold on. Tony Pollard's going to walk out the door. Tony Pollard's going to get used, chewed up, spit out, moved on. That's perfect for fantasy. I'll take Tony Pollard here on a free agent year, trying to cash in, get all the carries, and move along. So as your third running back, you could do worse than Tony Pollard. You could do worse than Rico Dowdle. You could do worse than Jadarian Price. Tutin, again, there's upside and there's downside. You have to understand that. If you want to have Rodriguez too, this is also one of the few handicap situations. I don't love getting Rico Dowdle and Jalen Warren. That one I don't love. I think you pick a side there. My side is Rico Dowdle based on how good he was last year when given the rock as a 3-down back. And Jalen Warren's had a lot of opportunities. If they loved Jalen Warren, why the hell did this new regime come in and pay Rico Dowdle? They could have gone cheaper. They could have gone somewhere else. They brought in legitimate competition with a guy who's played with this head coach before, Mike McCarthy. I think you got to follow the money there. You got to follow what's going on. All right, let's go back to some of these rankings here and go through them as we go to that RB3 range here. Chuba Hubbard at 30. I'd rather have Tony Pollard at 31. Then we get into some of the backup guys, the secondary guys. RJ Harvey at 32. I'd rather wait and take Jonah Coleman. He's cheaper than him. He's cheaper than J.K. Dobbins. Blake Corum, I mentioned. Corum is a nice guy to take on your bench as a running back. He's got some touchdown equity. He's got massive upside should Kyron Williams befall an injury. He becomes the undoubted number 1 running back in that group. He becomes a low-end RB1 automatically just playing for the Rams. Jordan Mason, I think, is the guy that I prefer over Aaron Jones, just talking about age here. Jonathan Brooks at 35, I think, is a better investment than Chuba Hubbard at 30. You can wait another round, maybe even 2 for Jonathan Brooks, although in sharper leagues, you can't. Sharper leagues, Jonathan Brooks is already going ahead in Chuba Hubbard, so just know who you're drafting against. The Washington situation is very difficult. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt at 36. It could be him. It could be Rachaad White. It could be both. It could be neither. It's a disaster. It's really tough to understand. If you want to take shots on it, especially in half PPR leagues, I get it. Because you want more running back depth in those formats. I'm fine with that. But this is the next dead zone. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt at 36. J.K. Dobbins at 37. Aaron Jones at 38. I like Monangai. I don't like the fact he's hurt at 39. Rashad White at 40. Then you get to Kenneth Gainwell at 41. This is where I check back in. Gainwell at 41 in PPR leagues, I think, has a lot of upside. He's going into the consensus 120th player basically off the board. Okay, cool. If he's my third running back, I'm in. I'm fine with that, especially in PPR formats. Not so much in half or standard. Chris Rodriguez at 42, I think still has some upside. It seems like he's still going to work in there. Then you got Ray Davis, who I'm not interested in. Katron Allen, again, not interested. There's already two other guys ahead of him. Zach Charbonnet's not going to play until Thanksgiving at best, so I'm not interested there. Keaton Mitchell is a handcuff. I don't think, to Jake Seeley's point on the show the other day, I don't think it's an easy, you just take one away and all of a sudden you get Keaton Mitchell being the guy. I think it does get split up workload-wise if something happened to Hampton. So I'm not super in on him. 48, Woody Marks. 49, Tajay Spears. But at 50, Marshawn Lloyd, I think, is very interesting. He's having a good camp. Marshawn Lloyd could fill in if Josh Jacobs misses time. This is another one of these guys, last round pick, has some upside. We talked about those late round gems with Jake last week. If you missed that, go back and watch it on the channel. Those are the top 50 running backs. Those are my takes on the rankings. You could see where the good zones are, where the dead zones are, where you want to start putting your draft capital, where you want to avoid, and in the auction drafts too, where you can pivot. The guys are going to be a little bit less expensive. The Scadaboos, the Javonte Williams, right? That grouping, the Travis Achans. Those guys are going to be highly productive in their offenses. The David Montgomerys. Very solid, very reliable, I think, for the most part. Certainly more cost effective. So if you're like me and you like that hero RB, that's the group you're looking to next. If you're going heavy wide receiver and you're trying to go zero RB, you better pound that group pick after pick after pick as much as you can get in there. And then take some shots late with those guys going on that fringe of RB2. This year, there's some good ones. I mentioned earlier, Janarian Price, Bashal Tutin, Rico Dowdle, Tony Pollard, and then you get down to Mason and Brooks too. There's a lot of guys once you get past that area that have a lot of upside. So that's the RB ranks. That's my take on it. I'd love to hear from all of you. Drop your comments below. Remember, when you do, you could win something cool. So subscribe to the channel, drop your comments, like this video, hype this video, and you could win the Thurman Thomas autographed mini helmet. Don't forget also, wherever you get your podcasts, we're out there now. We're on the Believe Network as well, so if you listen to anything on Believe, you could find us there. We're on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, iHeart, all of the above. And as you can see, find these rankings. Look for yourself. Look in the consensus over at rotowire.com. Download the app. Use the promo code JoeyP. You get 20% off, and you help keep this show going here on Fandom NFL. So great talk. Hope everyone's doing well today. And of course, I want all of you to continue to get ready for your draft season. So make sure you subscribe to the channel and stay with me all season long because we have some amazing plans this year for all of your NFL love and everything you need for betting, for fantasy, and just football. That's what we do here. This is fandom, baby. All right, that'll do it for me, Joey P. But the story of the game goes on. We'll see you next time, everybody. This has been Fandom NFL.